Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is what matters? What if we lived according to what mattered to us most deeply, rather than just through inherited circumstance or the dictates of others? What if we lived according to our values and what we felt was most important? So that's what we're discussing today. Before we get started, though, let's take a minute or two to get present. And actually, before we do that, let me say good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us as well. So let's take a minute and let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're talking about what matters. And so often we get swept up into we get swept up and into the demands of life, of circumstances, of others, of other people's priorities, of the demands of the moment. And we don't really get to step back and look at our lives and our choices. We don't really take the time to choose, to design our lives. And that's what we're talking about today, is really in the course of our lives, giving ourselves the gift of being able to see our lives and be proactively engaged in creating them and creating our direction and actually questioning, what do I really want? And that can be a very confronting question, because we put up all kinds of barriers around our obligations and responsibilities. And so many of the justifications that we use for our obligations and responsibilities are inherited. You know, the reasons for doing things are often inherited, and there's social pressure for a lot of our behaviors. I've and there are social consequences when we kind of push the limit or break the mold. And we could be ostracized, we could be judged, we could be made fun of, criticized. It's interesting. I'm listening on Audible to a wonderful, wonderful book by Suzanne Simard. And she's um she's a scientist who studies the interactions within forests, and the interactions between trees and fungi and all the other organisms that the animals even within the forests, and seeing this vast web, the wood wide web of interaction. And she's so deeply passionate about her research, and she brings alive the community within a forest. And she came to this through the Forestry Service, where she was responsible for studying clear cuts and how to regenerate forests, and the effects of clear cutting and herbicides and all kinds of other things on the longer term growth of replenished forests. And she discovered these interactions that were highly unpopular. And she has had the experience of lots and lots of blowback as a result of her research that is very well founded. And she's been targeted in a lot of ways because her research goes against mainstream policy, because it is calling us to awaken to greater interconnections within nature than we previously recognized, and to see broader consequences of our actions that are very that have been maybe oversimplified in our determinations about how things work, and that there are all these consequences that we hadn't recognized previously. Anyway, talking about what matters, she has had to face over and over again a choice between sort of fading into the woodwork, which I don't know that that was really a choice for her, or promoting this research that is well founded, that really rocks the boat, that kind of upsets the apple cart in a very big way, because it's disrupting the way that the whole forestry industry and logging industry is oriented. And here she has a deep, deep passion about what she's doing and what she's learning and what she's discovering. And she had to choose, and has to choose, I guess, over and over again, as to keeping things easy, or pursuing what really, really matters to her, and at great personal cost in lots of ways. For most of us, we have the opportunity to pursue what matters in a way that's not disrupting the status quo in a large context. We may be disrupting the status quo within our little world, our smaller world, our more immediate world. It may not be little, but our more immediate world. In relationships, for example, so many of us are quelled into silence, coerced into silence, or comply with a an unspoken demand for silence to avoid being bullied, for example. So I was talking to a client, and we were talking about certain people in their lives that, and I think we all, well, maybe we all have these people that bully other people into silence or bully other people into compliance. And people don't speak up because it can disrupt the status quo. People will just go along to get along. And this begs the question of what matters? What matters? Does it matter that someone is allowed to continue to bully people, to dominate, to treat people poorly, to run roughshod over others without being called to task, without being held accountable? Is that acceptable? And I guess the question is that we get to consciously choose is what matters? Is it okay? Are we going to support that by being complicit? We are complicit by allowing these patterns to continue without addressing them, right? We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to create an uncomfortable situation. We don't want to create a scene. And I think it's important for us to look at what matters. Is keeping the peace the thing that's most important, for example, or is creating a shift of awareness and behavior? Like, we have that opportunity, but we often choose to allow ourselves to sink into a place where we have given away our power, given away our sovereignty. And I wonder, are there situations in your life where you can recognize times when you've just sort of given away your power, where you've given away or given away your sense of what matters and what's important? Because what I notice is when I've done that, I tend to go numb. I tend to get disconnected from myself and consequently get disconnected from others. If I get too swept up in the doing of things, I lose my connection. And this notion of connection is something that I guess is more visible right now for me, more front of mind. We can get so swept up in the doingness, and there's so much to do, so many demands, that we get disconnected even from ourselves. And when we're disconnected from ourselves, we can't connect to others. And my inclination is something that I'm feeling into more and more deeply, and I invite you to as well, is there anything more important? Is there anything that matters more then keeping that connection to self so that we can have the connection to the world and to others and to situations, that holding that connection to ourselves, that core connection, allows us to navigate the circumstances of the world where things are pulling us in different directions. When we're connected to ourselves, we have a greater ability to discern what we can, which situations to address and which ones we just let slide and not get swept up in the tide of external demands. That even in the face of all those demands, the counteraction or the remedy for overwhelm is reconnecting, I think. Because what happens when we get overwhelmed? We're focusing on all this other stuff outside. And if we can reestablish that connection, take a moment to breathe, take a moment to center, then we can look at all these different things. So what matters? What matters? We can be asking that question on so many different levels. On a fundamental level, we can be looking at what matters in terms of being present to life at all. You know, what matters is having that foundational connection that we can navigate from, that is the North Star for us, which is that connection to self. And then from that space, then what matters? What matters when we confront something like prejudice? Do we go along to get along, or do we speak up? It can be disruptive to speak up. It can create, again, social consequence. But what matters? Again, it goes back to, how do we relate back to ourselves? Are we behaving in a way that's in alignment with our values? And how can we do that in a way that is in alignment with the spectrum of values? So for instance, in confronting prejudice, do we confront it with aggression, or do we confront it with kindness and curiosity? What matters? The things that we can control, the things that we can influence, are our own behavior and the way that we integrate the experience of the world and the meaning that we assign to things. We can make a difference in that way when we bring ourselves conscious, when we bring ourselves present, when we actually ask the question, what matters here? When we have an altercation, what matters? What matters to me? How do I want to live into my highest self? So where in our everyday lives can we ask this question? You know, when we're getting all freaked out about something, that's a good time to look at, well, what matters? What do I value here? What's important? What do I want to stand for? going along to get along. There are moments when that's an important thing. But for the most part, we can shape the world. We can shape the world by tuning into what matters and living into what matters and keeping our alignment with self, keeping our connection. For me, what's emerging is that connection is the most important thing. Connection, when I'm disconnected from myself, I don't act in accordance with my values, or I'm asleep, or I'm numb, but I'm not engaged with life. So what would it take? What would be different if you could live from that space of connection, from that space of what matters? And there's a point where you might get to nothing matters. And then we get to create meaning. We create meaning anyway, but what if we were to do it deliberately? What if we were to construct for ourselves what matters? What if we were to design life for ourselves in a way that matters for us? Where we create meaning in a deliberate way, rather than just accepting all the meaning that we're indoctrinated with. What would that be like? So that's the invitation, is to start exploring for yourself what matters. And maybe start with that connection. Like, what would that look like if you allowed that connection to self matter? I guess we're talking about mindfulness, really. If we can feel our presence, feel our alignment, be connected to life, what richness might be available to us? So it's kind of an amazing path of discovery that's available to us all. And that's the curiosity for the day, the question for the day, the invitation. And that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to like, share, and follow Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's a delight and a privilege to have these morning moments to muse together and explore what it is to be human. So with much gratitude, until next time. So much